Hello, I'm Joel Blackford with Beth Hesed Sabbath Fellowship. We expect to meet soon. Getting really excited about that. I did a session on Party Like It's 1844, discussing some of the big groups of the 1800s and how their eschatology was huge during the 1800s, and it really caused a frenzy. And now they've kind of settled down and everything like that, but they're coming back. As we go into the end times, these 1800 ideas are coming back, and some of them are still happening right now, because you're going to have to ask questions like, what's happening to us? Why was I born for such a time as this? You know, my philosophy of the end of days, my philosophy of eschatology. So I want you to stay away from disparate thinking, from crazy talk. I want you to be aware that people are going to come to you and ask you constantly, are you rapture ready? Even when we're in the Great Tribulation. And because they're going to constantly say, well, then we'll just move the goalposts. And we'll go from pre-trib rapture to mid-trib, you know? And so I want to give you some knowledge, some of an idea of what your reality is, and then why were you born for such a time as this? It's the philosophy of the end times. So, are you rapture ready? Here's the problem with that. It's not in the Bible. Is there a doctrine of imminence? It really isn't in the Bible, people, okay? And then the third thing that I'm going to try to take down today is dispensationalism. These things cause disparate thinking, and they're distractions, and they really cause destruction, okay? So these lack of facts, this is Tyler Durden from, well, it's actually the Northman Trader that is publishing On Zero Hedge, and talking about how things are going to get really crazy going forward, and there's going to be a lot of fear. Well, fear is going to cause you to reach out to people that are going to have all the answers. So the groups from the 1800s have all the answers. Everything's all thought out. The problem is it isn't going to work out their way. I'm learning day by day how things are going to change because I didn't understand that COVID-19 would be as horrific as it was in terms of what it did to us, in terms of turning our homes into concentration camps, and how it wouldn't really kill as many people. I kind of thought we were going to go into the fourth seal. And then even right now, as I record this today, I kind of expected two comets, Atlas and Swan, to kind of touch each other like static electricity and cause a huge green look in the sky. Well, it didn't happen. So that's life. Okay, so I'm going to argue against rapture ready, imminence, and dispensationalism, and I'm going to try not to frighten you. Let's see what happens. So, there are lots of distractions going on right now. The worst one is that a group of Sabbath keepers have come out and said, well, it's time to remove Paul from the Bible. He doesn't make sense, so let's just remove him. Well, if you remove Paul, you have to remove Peter because Peter likes Paul, and he states that in the second book. And then you have to really remove James because James condoned Paul's actions and say the Nazir vow that Paul took in Acts chapter 18 and chapter 21. Well, James ran the council in Jerusalem, so you have to throw James out too. And you might as well throw John out because, John was a buddy too. So goodness gracious. The lunar Sabbath, 5G, sacred name, KJV only, flat earth, aliens, demons, UFOs, rapture date setting. It's all disparate thinking. These are all distractions. This is going to drive you crazy. You have to be clear headed as we go into the end times. You have to be prayerful. You have to be ready for spiritual warfare. And you shouldn't be concentrating on the conspiracies. Yes, they are going on. I mean, there is a new world order. There are people that would love to, geotag you with a device and put the mark on you and put you into a database and keep track of you. Yeah, but these are distractions, okay? The real issue is getting through those final days when the Antichrist shows up. The false prophet is doing what he's doing. Gog does the things. These are all three different people, okay? So the Antichrist is different because you can tell based on how we bury them or get rid of them. Who's burned and who's buried. Gog is buried. The Antichrist is burned. So they're different people. Sorry, that's how it works. So I want to give you stuff that makes sense consistently throughout the Bible. I don't throw out the Old Testament. I read the Old Testament in the Hebrew. I don't throw out the New Testament because I read it in the Greek. And sometimes I get some things that you're not going to see because I see consistencies through the Septuagint. So yeah, there's conspiracy theories, deal with it, but we have to go forward. We have to look at the Bible and know it. We have to know prophecy then and now, and trust me, the false prophets are out right now. And Jesus warned us, hey, there's going to be some false prophets. Okay, then the fake news. Well, there's going to be a lot of fake news, and it's going to want to frighten you because they make money off that. So let's study this and see if we can make sense. So I'm going to be attacking the doctrine of the pre-trib rapture, the doctrine of imminence, the doctrine of dispensationalism. And if you don't like what I'm doing, don't comment and go rah rah rah. Just this is my opinion. And so the main thing is go find some other site that gives you fluff. Okay, just go there. If you want to dig into the Bible and dig into what's going on and get away from the distractions and the date setting, then stay with me, okay? But these are big distractions. So, as you can see on the top here, defending the pre-trib rapture or disproving the pre-trib rapture. A lot of distractions going on between the two of them. I can prove this phantom doctrine of imminence. No, you can't. I just need one proof text. Well, you can't find it. And then trapped by the pre-trib rapture. So we're going back and forth and back and forth. The rapture is under attack. Oh no, people won't believe it. And then dispensationalism. What is it? Well, that means God changes his mind. Well, we have to discuss these things because all of these types of things, if you believe in the wrong stuff, the distraction, so to speak, you're going to say, we need 88 reasons why the rapture will happen in 1988 because the date setting always happens when you get distracted. Let's go back to the Reformation. And let's talk about Luther and Wycliffe and Tyndale. So those guys are actually pre-Reformation. Wycliffe and Tyndale, they came about 100 years earlier and they died before really anything happened. But they did kick off some amazing things. They were like two witnesses. They weren't theologically that correct, but you know what? They were going along on the path. Knox jumps in. Luther is early on in this. Calvin too. John Wesley, he's a hero of mine. And so you really don't have the holiness movement until you get to Wesley. And then William Seymour comes from that. And I just love William Seymour and those people back in 1906 with the Azusa Street movement. Now, I don't like what happened to it after that because it has been corrupted at times. But I don't have a Messianic movement unless we move through Methodism, Wesley, holiness, those types of churches, which the SDAs, they're listed down below, but they're really coming into the holiness movement. Pentecostalism, which is holiness, and then charismatic, non-denominational churches, and then into Messianics. So I wouldn't have a movement. Sabbath keepers, well, God would have done it, but it would have come out of no place. At least we kind of came through these other things, Methodism. And I can see as I went to my Red Rock church camp over the years, the people would kind of realize Methodism is killing off their good pastors and promoting the bad pastors. And so they kind of went towards the holiness into Pentecostalism, charismatic, Messianic. Then you see the other movements, Reformed, Presbyterian, Church of Scotland, Anabaptist, Mennonite, Amish, holiness kind of down there too. The Baptist, Adventists, Seventh-day Adventists, and they came out of the Baptists in some ways. The Catholic Church goes their own direction. And so in this case, the Protestant reformers talked about theology, not much about eschatology. They only said this, and Luther especially, that the Pope was the Antichrist. Okay, so that was real typical for them to say. And so otherwise, they really didn't discuss eschatology much. There was no rapture theory coming out of these guys at all. Now, you could say that the Catholic Church started it, and we'll go to that slide, but I wanted to show you how these things kind of moved out from the tree, the source, from either the Roman Catholic Church or Protestantism. And I would argue that in many ways, not the Presbyterian Church, but the Episcopal Church came out of the Catholic Church more, and they kind of show that here somewhat. But it's still reformed through the divorce of Henry VIII. So my theory agrees with this theory, which is that the Catholic Church said, hey, stop saying that the Pope is the Antichrist. We need to come up with a theory. So they started to plant the thoughts of the rapture. Then it was moved on by Manuel Lacunza in the 18th century. So early on during the Reformation time, they had to come up with an answer. That's Francisco Ribera. Then Edward Irving is a charismatic, and he started to teach it. Then Darby kicked it off. Darby really kicked it off. Then Scofield published it everywhere across the world. And now today, they are the people that are supporting dispensationalism, the doctrine of imminency, and imminence, and then also the pre-trib rapture. And so they go hand in hand, all three of those. And so according to this Canadian site here, it ends up all of these different people, all of these people keep on setting dates, and it's really disgusting. And so it started out in the 1930s, then they had rapture dates in the 1840s, rather not 1830, not 1930. And so, the Millerites and all these other people. And so what I want you to be aware of is that this thought process is going to distract you. And what happens is we come up with these date settings. Mormons do it. The SDAs did it early on as the Millerites, when they were the Millerites. And so just keep it in mind. The Russellites, which would be the Jehovah's Witnesses, and the Millerites, as I mentioned, and even some of the other denominations, they've been picking out some dates over the years. So this is the date setting pattern by the Millerites and the SDAs. And you're saying, why do you pick on the SDAs? Because they're the closest to us. They really are in terms of theology, not so much eschatology, but theology to the Messianics, the Sabbath keepers. The SDAs are actually the closest. So you always pick on the ones that are the closest, okay? But they kicked off this rapture frenzy in 1843, 1844. And they were saying, well, days in Daniel are like years for us, so we're going to count from whatever date, and we're going to come to 1843, 1844. And the distractions ruled these believers, and then they became, they called it I'm blanking on the term for what it's called, the great controversy, we could call it, and then they went post-trib after that, the SDAs. So let's look at these different trees and what happened. So the 1830 people, Darby really kicked off the pre-trib rapture. He was a dispensationalist. He was pro-Israel, that they generally are. They were disparate in their thinking, frenzied Millerite date-setting people, but they had end times ministries. Okay, the pre-trib rapture people are end times ministries, no doubt about that. The Mormons, they are an end times ministry also, but they're cults. Okay, and they replace Israel, and they date set, and they're disparate thinking again. Then the Jehovah's Witnesses really started more 1859. They're a cult again, date setting, replace Israel again, disparate thinking, but they're an end times ministry. They're going to pop up on the end. So once again, just like the other video, I'm telling you, you're going to see the rapture people popping up in the end of days, talking to you and saying, hey, I got all the answers. Same with the Mormons, same with the Jehovah's Witnesses. They're going to have all the answers. Okay, now let's move over to the other side of the screen, to the right-hand side, and see the split. The pre-trib rapture divided into cessationists, which generally don't date set, but sometimes they allow it, and they're pro-Israel. They have bad eschatology, but they are part of an eschatological ministry in the end of days. You're going to see them everywhere. They have all the money. Then the continuationists. Those are more of the charismatics, and so they believe in the pre-trib rapture too. Their theology is pretty good. I mean, they're as close as you're going to get to us other than the SDAs. Pro-Israel, yep. Bad date setting happens all the time with the charismatics, and they have some other problems, babbling and things like that, but they have eschatos ministries, meaning the end times ministries, okay? Then once again, as I stated, the SDAs are about 90% like us, and they're real close to the truth, real close. I don't like Ellen White. I don't like that they replace Israel, but they are post-trib. And they do preach an eschatology strongly. I mean, they go out and have sessions. You don't know it's SDA, but it is. And they do read their Bibles. They really spend a lot of time in the Word. So you have to respect them. They're really 90% like us. And then you've got the Zionist Messianics, okay? So we're hyper for Israel because God's a Zionist, okay? And I don't care if you call it political Israel or theological Israel and say that they're only political right now. Well, God's going to make them theological Israel. He purifies them, not they purify. And look at America. It's pretty disgusting. If you don't like Israel right now, look at America and clean your own doorstep first, okay? So 99% of the Messianics really deal with theology. They're really poor at eschatology because it's all over the place. They all come in from these different movements, so they're disparate on their eschatology, but they should be an eschatological ministry, but they're not. They're very Bible literate. They learn very quickly, so they'll catch on quickly. But what eschatos? Meaning most of my Messianic type friends, Sabbath keeping friends, they really don't spend much time in the end of days. They're kind of being forced to discuss it right now. Some are preterists for that matter. Some of the top ones are. So keep it in mind, it's very, very problematic because the people that, okay, they're called Messianic. That means the Messiah returns, and they don't study the end times. And if they do, they come in with these clouded theories that came from where the 1800s were. So whatever it was in the 1800s, unfortunately, that clouds our thinking today. This is from Wikipedia, and it discusses all these date-setting conspiracies. These are the distractions, and dispensationalism kicks it off. Imminence kicks it off. Pre-trib rapture. All of these things just cause the distractions. And so it ends up, imminence causes fear mongering because you don't know what's going on and nothing is supposed to occur. Date setting, conspiracy theories, and these things make money. Okay. So you're supposed to have the correct timing of the rapture view, but since nothing needs to occur, it causes problems with other aspects of Bible prophecy, can lead to discouragement, depression actually, can lead to dangerous false doctrines, and the doctrine of imminence is a strong medicine against procrastination about serving God. So, they're basing this on Matthew 24:44, and so I'm going to start to handle all three of these guys, dispensationalism, imminence, and pre-trib rapture today. Okay, so imminence. These guys are preaching imminence on the left-hand side, and so that is what hides the pre-trib rapture. So you can't take down the pre-trib rapture without taking down imminence first, but nobody really talks about it much, but they all hold to it. All these guys on the left-hand side. Nothing needs to occur before the rapture. Okay, so it's the protector of the pre-trib rapture. It falsely states that from the day of Pentecost, 30 Common Era, that's my date, not theirs. They'd probably say 33. There's nothing, no event is prophesied to precede the return of Yeshua. He could come at any moment. It's a secret rapture. You need to be rapture ready, which is not in the Bible. And really, imminence is not in there either. Okay, Yeshua tells us he will come like a thief in the night suddenly and unexpectedly, but he meant this for the warning for unbelievers. Believers will know. We'll know what's going on. We should know the signs, people. We should know that we're in the birth pangs right now. We should know. Okay? So, the plagues are everywhere. So here's what happens with the doctrine of imminence. It runs smack dab, boom, into what's going on in the world today. All these plagues. So let's look. Oh, we have a biblical locust plague that started in 2019, and then it happened again in 2020, and then now it's coming through again, and the locusts are huge this time, people, okay? And that's in southern Iraq, and that's really in the Horn of Africa, and then heading up into Asia. It's horrific right now. Apocalyptic hail. This is big hail, people, in Mexico. And so that's apocalyptic. Dust storm. You should see this dust storm from May 16th. It's horrific. This is biblical too. These all match up with Bible passages. So I'm saying, do you want to say, I want to believe disparate thinking because it'll cause stress in my mind, and so I'm going to believe in the doctrine of imminence to protect that rapture doctrine? Or do you want to reconcile things with what's happening in the world? The birth pangs are happening, and when you see all these end times events unfolding, sandstorms, locust plagues, hail, all these things are biblical. They match up. You've got to reconcile it. You have to. That's why imminence doesn't work. So let's just cite the citations here. Exodus 10:12, the locusts came to Egypt and the hail had left, okay? Then Joel 2:24, the years that the locusts ate, the grasshoppers, the shearworms, the cutterworms, and the great army that I sent against you. So it's basically 4 different types of locusts that come through. Well, we're on number 3 right now through those African and Asian areas where we've gone through 3 different types of locusts. Okay, interesting. We're almost ready to go with the 4. Okay, have you seen my treasury of hail that I've reserved for the time of trouble? That's today, for the day of battle and war. That's Job 38. So it's Job of all things. I mean, come on, Job, eschatology, there it is. Okay, so hail is reserved for this time. We know when you see a lot of hail that God reserved it for this time. Okay, then the dust storms. Well, that's Deuteronomy 28. I will send dust and sandstorms instead of rain, and you will be wiped out. So this is all biblical. These are all, Deuteronomy 28 is like Leviticus 26. These are those 2 chapters that say, you won't keep my Torah? Fine, I'm going to send this stuff against you. I'm going to send wave after wave of plagues until you finally repent. So, imminence. What does imminence do? It sets up date setting. It does. The Bible says you're not supposed to set dates, but Harold Camping said, hey, May 21st, 2011. I remember driving through Denver and seeing that sign as I took a trip down to see a buddy during May of 2011. And it's like, why do we have all these rapture signs up? And, I'm just trying to pick people off and get donations. So anyway, when will the rapture take place? This year? And the date of the rapture, let's predict. So they're always trying to predict these dates of the rapture. So it produces fear porn. Now, why am I citing Jeffrey Grider? Who cares? Because he's the guy that's on Rapture Ready all the time right now. And what is he saying on Rapture Ready? He's saying that looks like 18 months, people, that Netanyahu is going to rule Israel, and then he's out, and the other Benny is going to show up, and that other Benjamin is going to rule. So that means that we can't have the rapture at the time that Netanyahu leaves, when Gantz takes over. So that means the rapture has to occur in 18 months. Okay, and he's fear mongering. He's fear porn. Okay, it just is, and so Rapture Ready is citing him all the time. Here's from 2011, 2016, 2016. He's predicting rapture dates in these time frames of 2011, 2016. The rapture is very, very close now. Oh, it's day by day standby. In 2016 is 4 years ago, and he's saying it's day by day standby. Okay, fear porn. God bless you, Rapture Ready, for giving us the news, but this guy's a curse because it's fear porn, and you should not be publishing this stuff. Okay, Perry Stone. Used to love the guy. I mean, when I went through my worst time in 2006, 2007, I hit his videos because I needed to. I needed to learn about Hebrew roots. I needed to learn about the Bible more. I needed somebody to help me. So God bless Perry Stone for being a continuationist, believing that God's gifts are present, being pro-Israel, but he's got the strong rapture doctrine. So when he sees the wacky things going on, he has to couch it in the thought of imminence and that the rapture is coming. And he has to hold on to it. He can't change now. And so he makes a lot of money, people. But he knows, there's his quote up above. See, we're seeing now what I believe are the real beginnings of the birth pangs Jesus talked about in Matthew 24. Guess what? If that's the case, then the imminence is falling apart right there. And we want it to fall apart. And the rapture is going to fall apart too. It's not going to happen. And I know they're going to move the goalposts. They're going to move it to mid-trib. They are. But, that that'll fail too. So the doctrine of the imminency, to teach the imminent coming of the Lord. No one will know the time of Yeshua's return. It may come at any moment, and so you shouldn't be in darkness. If you know the Bible, he won't come and surprise you like a thief. So imminence is wrong. The shaking and falling that you're seeing right now is not due to imminence. It's due to birth pangs. So you should judge the world based on that. Then surely God will do no thing, but he reveals the secret to the servants and the prophets. Well, guess what? The prophets have been wrong lately. And so the secret rapture, that doesn't work either. It just doesn't. People are going to know, okay? So there's some wonderful people out there. People always say, hey, watch this Chuck Missler video. And God bless Chuck Missler's memory. He's dead now. That he helped me to figure out some passages in the Bible, but I moved on from there because he really didn't know his Hebrew. He barely knew his Greek. And he had some strong rapture imminence theories. And so basically, he's supporting the doctrine of imminency based on Paul seemed to include himself among those who looked for Christ's return. Well, that doesn't mean imminency. Timothy admonished to keep the commandment without spot, unrebukable, until the appearing of the Lord Jesus Christ. That doesn't mean imminency. Jewish converts were reminded that yet a little while, and he shall come and will not tarry. That's not imminency. That's not going to prove it, guys. You're twisting Scripture. Okay, sorry, Chuck, you're twisting. And Bill Wrench, you're twisting. And preterists are twisting too, because obviously we're futurists. We know he's going to return. So if you have the incorrect view of the rapture, you're going to be discouraged. You're going to be believing false doctrines. You're going to have all sorts of mental problems as you can't harmonize the disparate things that are going on that actually make sense biblically, but because you are couched in imminence and pre-trib rapture and dispensationalism, and you think God is dual-minded, that he had a deal for the Jews and a deal for the Christians, and they're different, well, you're going to have problems with what's happening coming forward here, okay? So Tommy Ice. Tommy Ice says, we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. Yeah, that's at the end. It's not the doctrine of imminency, and these verses that are cited here are really not defending it, but there you go. And got questions. People always say, well, I love got questions. Well, they are imminence, they are pre-trib rapture, and they are, oh goodness, why am I blanking on the third thing right now? They are dispensationalists, okay? So it doesn't work scripturally. It's not going to work in your life. You're going to see God questions fall apart. You're going to see Tommy Ice fall apart. You're going to see all these people, these top dogs that make a lot of money, fall apart over the next few years here, okay? It's all a house of cards and the mob mentality. So obviously, I don't have a place with them because I can't book a gig to save my life, because as soon as I start talking about my theories on this, they go nuts, okay? So the thought behind the thought, once again, just as in dispensationalism, we're not debating the issue of pre-tribulation rapture, but rather a theory behind the theory, the philosophy of eschatology. If the dispensationalism is true, then the pre-tribulation rapture is true. If imminence is true, then the pre-tribulation rapture is true. But if both of these are false, then pre-tribulation rapture must also be false. And so, are you going to believe the dogma, because it's a lot of dogma? Or if one falls, like imminence is starting to fall right now, and the pre-trib rapture falls, then I'm assuming that all three are going to fall. Okay, and so it started out with weak-minded people, Darby, and dogmatic. This guy describes him as a dogmatic and tyrannical cult leader. Schofield, Schofield. This guy says Schofield was a drunk, a crook, a jailbird, a shyster, and a ruffian, among other nefarious things. Now, he probably cleared it up after that, but he had a bad background. He really, really did. So there are some wonderful people that are dead now, J.R. Church, Chuck Missler, others. But you know what? They're good people, honor their memory, but they were wrong. Okay? And then the pre-trib rapture crowd that are reformed cessationists, okay? And that's the rapture ready crowd. They're dispensationalists, and all these writers in the middle here, including Jan Markell. God bless Jan Markell. She got me started back into the Bible. I mean, I was already in it. It's just that searching for the end times. And then I disproved her rapture theories and other theories, and I moved on from there. But Terry James and all the other guys that are involved in this, Damon Duck is a nice fellow. It's just I don't agree with him. Some of the other guys. And so, who is rapture ready and why them? And so, they have all these listings of all the things that you have to believe in with them, and citations of, the rapture index. Well, that's not in the Bible, people. Okay, no rapture index. And then on the other side, these are all the bad apples and prophetically confused people. I begged with them years ago, back in 2012, to publish my name on the list, and they wouldn't do it because I wasn't big enough. But I'm a bad apple in their book because I don't preach their dogma. Well, do you really want to preach dogma? So the basic tenets of dispensationalism. So now we have to defeat dispensationalism too, and that's really one of the most difficult to defeat. But it's destroyed by Scripture in terms of the grace was always there. It's chen in the Hebrew. It's charis in the Greek. It's there in the Septuagint all the way through the Bible. And so we've always had one unified message. 66 books, 40 authors that say the same thing. Grace for the Jews, grace for the believers in Yeshua. And so it's going to shake apart as we start to move in to the end times, because it's built on different covenants for different peoples, and that God is different and God is dyslexic and confused, and he's not. So you're going to see these things fall apart. Then the second goal, disprove the pre-trib rapture, this distraction of it, and you're starting to see rapture animosity. You're starting to see people like me say, no, I'm not going to believe your dogma. And so they're very angry with us. And they can't believe that we would question their theories, all three of them, dispensationalism, imminence, and rapture, pre-trib. And so every false doctrine, every false teacher, every false church will be shaken and fall. You will have Yeshua, his word, and the Spirit remaining. That's it. And so this stuff is going to fall apart. The second goal is to disprove that. And then the third is, imminence, and that's falling apart as we speak right now. So this deals with the doctrine of dispensation and the innocence, conscience, human government, patriarchs, law, grace, millennium. It's not in the Bible, people. Okay, you have to twist the Bible. And so what they're trying to convince you of is a distinction between God's plan for Israel and God's plan for the church. And it doesn't work. So they call this the church age. There is no such thing as a church. It was always the assembly, in the Old Testament, and it's the assembly in the New Testament. The church thing is a building. There is no, God doesn't love a building. He loves people. Okay, and so after the rapture, Israel's clock will again begin to tick, and Daniel's 70 week will kick off, and the tribulation unfolds. Well, here's the problem with that. We're in the birth pangs already. You know we're in the birth pangs. You see the sights going on. So that means that they're probably losing their doctrine of imminence, and then the rapture is going to fall apart right after that. Here's dispensationalism again, and so it's circular reasoning. That only believers who come to faith during the church age who are counted as part of the Messianic community. So this is Stern, David Stern. So I'll read it to you more carefully. Okay, there is a circular reasoning for it is only believers who come to faith during the church age who are counted as part of the Messianic community, this assembly, so to speak. And the church age is defined as ending with the tribulation. Then, by definition, no one who comes to faith during or after the tribulation is in the Messianic community, even though by every other criterion, their faith is identical with that of the Messianic community members. So it doesn't work scripturally. Thank you, David Stern. So, once again, what's destroying all of these imminence doctrines and pre-trib rapture and whatever else is this happens to be an article by Michael Snyder on all 10 of the plagues that are hitting right now. I'm only going to show you the first page, but basically, once again, it's not going to happen like a thief in the night if you're actually studying the Word. Okay? Don't think disparately. Look at the signs going on around you and realize they're biblical. Then we move on down the line to the cessationists that take it to the final level, which is brutally bad. So this is John MacArthur. And Chris, I can't remember Chris's last name. It doesn't matter. He's on the right-hand side. He has clipped the audio tape of John MacArthur saying, well, when it comes time to take the mark of the beast, take it. Because he truly believes in two things. One, imminence, pre-tribulation rapture, that you're going to be out before you would have to take the mark. Okay? These are false assumptions, but he takes it right on out to the end because he's so arrogant. Okay? And then the belief in the tulip, the perseverance of the saints, which is P. So that's perseverance, which is once saved, always saved. And people fight with me all the time on this. Well, I know that person was never saved if they fell away. Well, how do you know? You don't have the right to judge anyway. And why would you judge? Are you God? Are you Yeshua? So they argue you can't lose your salvation. Okay? And once you're immersed, you can sin like hell, and you're still going to heaven. You can't lose your salvation. We've watched many come to faith. I've watched them lose their faith. It happens. And so you have to pick up your cross every day, follow Yeshua, and remain in your faith. If Moses could be blotted out of the book of life, then so can we. But MacArthur believes so strongly in imminence, the pre-trib rapture, and the perseverance of the saints, once saved, always saved, that he said, take the mark. It's not going to matter. You can't lose your salvation. You can't. You're going to get raptured out before. It doesn't matter. Just take the mark. It's not. Well, you can't tell people to do that. It's horrible. And then, anyway. And then this happens as a result of cessationism and believing in these errant doctrines. This man, Robert Jeffress, from Dallas, Texas, has become the apologist of Trump. He is on Fox all the time, on Fox Nation, and he is a conservative crusader. His church is $130 million. Where is that in the Bible? And also, the interesting thing is that it's red, white, and blue because he worships nationalism. You can see a picture of his church in there with the flags and everything like that, and him praying over Trump. And he has this problem that he has to be noticed, and he has to be the biggest fish in the pond. And so he's a little guy, and he's a weasel. And I can't stand him because there's no place in the Bible that says that you apologize for leaders. Even if I like Trump, you don't do that. And this is what he does. And his gospel is Trump. And he's going to fall with this. And he's going to fall with the rapture. And he's on all the eschatological stations with Jan Markell. And he's going to take everybody else down the drain with him. So As we go forward, you're going to have to make some decisions. You're going to have to go with the date setters, the pre-tribulation crowd. You're going to have to go with the pre-wrath crowd, which is the middle point somehow, but they equivocate and they really stand for nothing. We're all three premillennial, meaning the 1,000 years after that, after Yeshua returns. Then my crowd, we're not a happy crowd, okay? It's not a happy place to be. The post-tribbers, it's not pleasant, okay? But you're going to have to choose one and live with your choice and double down on your faith, people, okay? So as I mentioned before, you've got all these distractions going on, and they all lead to date setting. So don't get distracted. Don't listen to the 1840s people coming back and saying, blah, 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 I have all the answers. They don't. And a lot of them will set dates. We are getting close to the fourth seal. We aren't there yet. We've seen the signs of the third seal that was prophesied back in 2012 to open. Watch another video of mine to see the exact specifics of that. The last 3.5 years are going to be horrific, and the two witnesses will show up before the beginning of the 7 years, just slightly before. They will die and resurrect, whatever that is. They'll be called up before the midpoint, and then you'll go into the last 3.5 years, and that's when things get really, really bad, when the bowls start opening. I believe we've gone through seal 3. Those are the birth pangs. They match up. Matthew 24 matches up with where we are in the world right now. Seal 2 is battles. Seal 3 is pestilence. Seal 4 is drought. Seal 6 is earthquakes. Jesus talked about it. And these are the signs of the fourth seal. So if you see 1.944 billion deaths, you're in the fourth seal, coming from 4 different things. Seal 5 is martyrdom. Seal 6 is burning figs in an earthquake. And please don't believe in the disparate stuff. Believe in the truth and read the Bible. Double down on your faith, and you'll get through. Be blessed.